So hello everyone, my name is Miss Caroline. I am one of the distance learning specialists here at the Liberty Science Center. Last week you may have joined me in our discussion on 3D printed prosthetics, but today we're going to be diving into sheep heart dissection. So we're going to be diving into a real sheep heart dissection, and we're going to be looking inside of a real sheep heart as part of this program. So I just wanted to say this to give any of our guests a little bit of a warning. You're going to be seeing a graphic image of a sheep heart on video. So I just wanted to warn some of those guests who might be a little more weary around these graphic images. So I'm going to be switching through my PowerPoint, this camera that you're seeing me on, and a better camera that you'll be able to see my sheep heart dissection. So you've probably seen a few of our live from programs. So the sheep heart dissection could be in association with our heart live from program. So a few weeks ago, we talked about heart risk factors, and our hearts that are one of the most important organs in our body are part of the circulatory system. So all of our live from surgeries explore different areas of the human body and different human body organ systems, but today we're going to be diving into the sheep heart and the circulatory system. So my question to you, while I start getting ready and prepared for my dissection, is what is the purpose of the heart? And I'm going to give my own answer, but you can share your answer as well. So what is the purpose of the heart? And why are we doing this dissection today? So my answer to that, what is the purpose of the heart, is the purpose of the heart is to pump blood throughout the body. The heart is a strong muscle with a lot of different parts and pumps, and that's its function, to pump blood throughout the body. I see some answers coming in now. Great job, great answers from everyone. So, as I said, we're going to be doing a sheep heart dissection. The reason we're able to do a sheep heart dissection is because it's actually very similar to the human anatomy of a heart. So a sheep heart dissection involves cutting into particular areas of the sheep heart so that we can see each of the different sections and learn a little more about what each part of the heart looks and feels like. A sheep's heart and sheep's internal anatomy are very similar to that of a human's. So it gives us an opportunity to learn a little more about it. So by dissecting this heart, we're able to learn a lot of different parts of the anatomy of the heart and just a lot of different things in general. So I'm going to take a minute to go grab my heart so you can get ready to see this dissection happen live. So I have my camera set over here just so you can see me hello. And I just want to test out my other camera. So this is my document camera, and here you can see two beautiful specimens. So by dissecting into both these hearts, we can learn about a few different sections. We're going to also use a separate heart model to talk about different parts of the human heart. So this might not look like a heart that you're used to seeing, maybe on the internet or in videos, movies. This is a preserved heart that's used in science for different dissections, and these hearts can be preserved for years and years and years until scientists like yourself or myself are ready to dissect them and learn a little bit about anatomy. So we're able to use these beautiful sheep hearts because of something called comparative anatomy. So although our human hearts don't look exactly like this, the parts and pieces are similar enough that they're practically identical. So before we talk about the dissection and cut into the heart, I want to talk about some dissecting tools that I'm going to be using for today's session. So for different hearts, I'm going to be using different tools. So cutting into different sections, going to be using different tools for that. So you can see on my document camera here, I have scissors, and this may be the main tool I'm going to be using today. And before and after each dissection that we do, we make sure that we sterilize all of these tools. I'm being very safe with them, and I'm wearing these gloves. I have these strong metal picks that I'll be able to kind of poke around and lift things to be a little more gentle with my models versus using my fingers or my hands. I have these pins that I'll be able to mark parts of the heart with, or if I was opening some pieces up, some flaps, and wanted to pin them down onto this soft cushion, I could do that as well. And I have this scalpel. So I'm going to put these down very carefully because these tools are a little sharp. So I have to make sure I'm very careful with them, and I won't be using these tools, so I'm going to just put them to the side. So as I said, our hearts are one of the most important organs in our bodies, and just like humans, sheeps have a four-chambered heart. And I know you might be looking at this straw, and I actually just put it in place so I was able to align the heart. So the best way for me to remember the heart, and a recommendation I would make to anyone studying the heart, is to split the heart's anatomy in two parts. So right now, we're looking at the back of the heart, or in more medical or scientific terms, you can describe that as the posterior view of the heart. So if I flip it over, this is the anterior view of the heart. So the front view of the heart. So if I were a surgeon working on a patient's heart, this is how I would see it in the OR. So this is the left side of the heart right here. This is the left side of the heart, and this is the right side of the heart. I'm going to turn it over so it's angled to me just how my body is. So left side here and right side here versus the other way around. So I'm turning it over here. And I'm going to just take these pins out because I have them as small markers. So I identified here the left side and the right side of the heart. So right here, again, this is the left side of the heart. This bottom piece of the heart is called the apex. And that's kind of where the bottom of the left ventricle lies. And right here at the top, although you can't see it, you'll be able to have a better perspective when we cut open into it, is the left atrium. On top right here, this larger valve that you're seeing is our aorta. And this smaller valve that you're seeing right under it is our pulmonary valve. So normally we would have the heart aligned this way, but I'm going to be working this way just to give you a better perspective. So these small black purplish flaps that you're seeing are called auricles. They're identical on both sides of the heart, although they might look different. And an important point that I want to make is that when we're looking at the heart, I want you to remember that not all hearts look the same. So this is a model that I was working on previously because I'm going to be cutting the heart open in two different ways. And I just want to make it very clear that the heart being cut in these two different ways may look very different from each other. So this heart is a very different shape from this heart, but they come from the same animal. These are both sheep hearts. You might be thinking, what is all of this white stuff? What is all this thick white stuff on the heart? And that is fat. So just to get a better view of my model, I'm going to carefully take my scissors and I'm going to cut some pieces of that fat off. So with this posterior view of the heart, normally if the aorta was a little longer, you would see your descending aorta and your aortic arch, which I'm going to show you a little bit later in your model. But here you have your right atrium right under this auricle, this small flap. You have your right atrium hiding right here, and I'm going to open up the heart just so you can see it a little bit better. And right here is the right ventricle. Where I place my pin is around where the left atrium is, and then that left ventricle. So as I said, the apex lies at the bottom of the placement of that left ventricle. So behind that aorta, so like I said, this is the front of the heart, this is the back of the heart, and behind that aorta is that pulmonary artery, which is the most exterior blood vessel that can be seen. It takes blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. So the right side of our heart, and in this sheep heart, receives blood that's usually low in oxygen from veins all around the body, and then it pumps blood into that pulmonary arteries to become reoxygenated. Normally, a lot of blood vessels have been cut off to be used in a scientific demonstration like the one you're seeing here. But otherwise, you would see a lot less fat and maybe more blood vessels, but those blood vessels are also being covered by this protective fat and tissue layer. So I'm going to open this model up for you, but I'm going to dissect this model as well. But I just want to give you one view, and I'm going to zoom in for you just so you can see that a little bit better. So if you're looking at this view, we kind of just cut it around and lifted this flat open. I see someone saying it looks like a Play-Doh model in the comments. It does look a little bit like a Play-Doh model, but this is very firm. If you were to hold it in your hands, usually the left side is more firmer than the right side because of the more muscles that are associated with the left side of the heart. So this side of the heart is already cut open. And just to give you a better perspective, this is our right side. So where our right atrium lies a little above here, and our right ventricle at the bottom here. Looking on this side, you have your left ventricle at the bottom. And although you can't see it in this dissection, I'm going to cut it open in this dissection so you can see it a little bit better, is our left atrium. And these small tendons that you can see, I'm going to lift them a little bit, are called our chordae tendineae. So I know that's a very scientific term, but these are small muscular fibers that are extremely important in association to the heart and connecting all of these blood vessels and important pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to zoom out a bit. I'm going to use my scissors along with my scalpel to get a strong cut. And as I said, a lot of hearts are shaped a little differently from each other. So I'm going to slowly and very carefully cut. So this dissection may look a little different than the one that you just saw. So there's my right auricle. Again, I don't want to cut through that. I want to keep that in place. We're going to dissect that a little bit better. So I'm going to just keep going around. So our hearts have 4 valves in them, and each of these valves work as a one-way road, and they keep blood flowing in one direction. Can anyone in our comments tell me how these valves work, or maybe what these valves are called? So can anyone give me an answer what these 4 valves are called? We'll give you an example. One of the valves is called a mitral valve. That's one of the valves in our heart. So I do have to be a little stern with this, but I'm being very, very careful. And my scalpel isn't too sharp because there's so many layers of the heart. So I want to be careful with my dissection. So it looks like I just need to cut a few layers deep. So I see some answers coming in on those valves. So our valves each separate our chambers. So our tricuspid valve, I'm going to try to give you a better perspective of. I'm just going to cut a little more here. You can see that heart starting to open up beautifully. Just have to get a few more cuts in between. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see all those strong layers of muscle. So I see in the comments someone saying tricuspid valve, pulmonic valve, aortic valve, and yes, those are all true. Great answers. So usually on the outside of the heart, a web of nerve tissues are more obvious and they're seen, and they run through and over the heart, and those nerve tissues conduct complex signals that govern contraction and something called relaxation. So I'm just going to cut away some of these layers just so I can open this up and give you a better view. Oof, that looks beautiful. There we go. So I'm going to go over some more parts. I just want to cut some pieces away to give you all a better perspective. So I see someone in the comments said, poor sheep. So these specimens were donated, and we all know that we use a lot of different parts of animals for our own human needs. And the sheep's heart was donated and given to us to be able to learn more about heart and anatomy. So a sheep has its own natural life, and after this sheep died, we were given this model to use and study for. So I'm going to cut away some of these fatty muscular layers because I want to give you a better perspective. You all are such a great audience. I'm seeing some really great comments coming in. I just want to cut some of these layers away, and I'm being very careful as I put some of my tools away because I might need the scalpel for one piece and the scissors for another. I just want to open this part up and peel it away a little bit. So what are some fun facts you can tell me about the heart while I'm getting these layers opened up for you? What are some fun facts you can all tell me that you may know about the heart? So I have my heart wide open, and this is a beautiful view. So right here are those tendons that I told you about earlier, those strong muscle fibers that connect these different layers and parts of the heart. You can see them as I'm kind of lifting them up and moving them around. They really don't break easily, even with the force that I'm applying. That just proves how strong and important our hearts are as organs. So right here, you have your right ventricle, and it may look a little gross. I'm going to peel some of these insides out just to give you a better view so you can see how hollow that layer is. This is a beautiful sheep heart model. So right over here, what you're seeing is the bottom of our right ventricle. And if we were to go up a little bit and cut up a little higher, so I'm just kind of tugging it away over here. I'm going to zoom out so you can see where I'm pointing to and where I'm tugging. So right up here is our right atrium. If I were to close this heart up, you would see that's where that little auricle is. Right under that auricle is where it lies. So right here is that right ventricle. And right above here, although you can't really see it too clearly, is that right atrium. So we have a lot of different blood vessels associated with the heart. So blood vessels entering and leaving the heart are known as veins. So veins are blood vessels that enter the heart, and arteries are blood vessels that leave the heart. In a lot of different models, these are labeled blue. So the blue models usually represent deoxygenated blood. And on this, although we can't see it, we can see a few different places where these would lie. So right here, as I promised, where our apex lies is that bottom groove of that left ventricle. And if I go up a little higher on this side, you can see, on the left side, you can see that left atrium. And in the small view, that white area is that bicuspid valve. And although right here, you can't see it too well on the right side just because it's covered, but maybe if I cut through a little bit, you'll be able to see it much more clearly. I want to give you a better view of that tricuspid valve. And this layer in the middle that you're seeing, this fatty layer, is our interventricular septum. So it's also, you can just consider a strong muscle or just another layer of the heart. Do I have any questions coming in? So some of my colleagues may be answering your questions in the chat in that Q&A comment box. So there it is again. I'm trying to peel away these layers. I might cut off a few more pieces because I would really love to give you a beautiful view of that tricuspid valve. I do have to be a little careful with cutting this model. I did say it would get gory, so there we go. There we go. You can see it there pretty well. So I'm going to just poke it a little bit so you can see. So right in this groove, you can see if I insert this in, this would be connected to our right atrium, because again, this is the right side, this is the left side, if you're looking at this orientation. So if I poke up a little bit, I can kind of reach the atrium, and that's where our tricuspid valve would lie in this model. So this white part and the inside of it, as I'm peeling away, you can see it a little bit there. So that mitral valve that's positioned in the left side of the heart is positioned between the left atrium and the left ventricle, and it separates those two pieces from each other. I'm going to actually cut away those muscle fibers just so you can get a better perspective of what the inside of this left ventricle looks like. So there's a lot of different things that we would be able to see on a normal human heart model that we can't see on this sheep heart dissection. And some of those pieces are coronary arteries. So coronary arteries are associated with coronary artery disease, and a few heart risk factors that we talked about a few weeks ago. So heart risk factors are associated with coronary artery disease, heart attacks, and various of other issues related to the heart. Can anyone tell me some heart risk factors that they can think of? So just holding this model out here, you can see all of this strong muscle. So I see exercise, someone saying a healthy diet in those comments. Yep, those are all great answers. So I'm just going to try to pin this part of the heart down, give you a better opening of it. I'm going to actually work a little bit with my other model. So this is a better model for me to work with just because the shape is more consistent with the shape of a natural heart. So I see smoking, hypertension, diabetes. I'm just looking in the comments right now. Yes, those are all associated risk factors of the heart. So to avoid any of these risk factors, we just want to keep our hearts healthy and avoid any of those bad risk factors. So again, if I open this model up, the second model, you can see, and a point that I said I wanted to make is that these hearts are identical. They're from they're from different sheep, but they are the same animal, the same species, and they look so different. And all of our hearts look so different from each other. So you can see this outside layer, this fatty outside, has much less fat in one area than this heart. So this heart has so much fat surrounding the top of it, but this heart model has fat around all of it. So if I go to the back of this heart model, you can see these kinds of grooves and this kind of trunk when it comes to the aorta is much larger. So here I just want to give you a better view of this aorta on this heart model because it's kind of a larger trunk. On the heart model I'm going to show you in a few minutes of the human heart model, you can see your aorta ascending and descending. On this model, you couldn't really see it. Usually we have that aortic arch that we follow on human heart models. I'm going to cut off that auricle where those atriums lie underneath, just to give you a better view of those auricles. When they aren't connected to the heart, they look like little flaps. Sometimes scientists like to call these little ear flaps of the heart, so they give them a few funny names. So there's a lot of muscles, a lot of different parts that are holding back this auricle. So you can see right here, those beautiful tendons, that strong muscle. Our hearts are one of the strongest organs in our body. So it's not surprising that they have these strong muscle fibers all around them. So I just wanted to cut off this auricle, give you a better perspective of it. So I kept the auricle on this side. It's a little more scrunched up and covered up, but the auricles on this heart model are still intact. But here you go. This is the auricle. It's kind of that protective layer. When you see it on the heart model that I'm going to show you, it's going to look very, very, very different. So I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to look at some questions in the chat while I get ready to show you a little bit of human anatomy of our heart. So right over here, you can see my model. This is a model of a human heart. It may look familiar from a few weeks ago when we talked about heart risk factors, when we talked about coronary artery bypass surgery, and all those factors that go into it as well. So as I said, when we're talking about the heart, the easiest way to remember the heart is to split it in two halves. And the reason I'm showing you this model is because I really want you to have a comparison. So the reason we use that sheep heart model is for something called comparative anatomy. So although we wouldn't be able to dissect on a real heart, the reason we can dissect on these sheep hearts is because they look similar enough to our human hearts for us to be able to dissect on. So normally those coronary arteries that you wouldn't be able to see would be on the aorta, on the base kind of layer of the aorta, and going across the heart. So what you're seeing here, this is the anterior view of the heart, and this is the posterior view of the heart. So as I said, anterior means front, posterior means back. So right here is our right side of the heart, and over here is that auricle that you saw before, that protective layer, and all of these chambers actually open up. So I'm going to open these up for you. So we have our right atrium. Right over here we have our pulmonary valve. It's a little small for you to see, but I'll zoom in for you. We have our pulmonary valve. And then right here we have our pulmonary artery is blue. We have our ascending aorta. Over here is our aortic arch. And then towards the back is that descending aorta. Right over here we have something called the superior vena cava. And if I open the bottom part of our right ventricle, you can clearly see in this little white area is our tricuspid valve. So as I said, our heart has four chambers. So the right atrium, right ventricle, and we're going to move over to the left side of our heart. So right over here, I have that left atrium, that mitral, or also known as that bicuspid valve, the choroida tendineae that I showed you on that sheep heart model. Right over here, we have our left ventricle. So this layer may look a little larger compared to our right side. We have the subenocardial branches that you may see, these little white marks. I'm going to get a pen just so you can see it a little clearly, and I can outline them a little bit for you. So right here, I just wanted to show you a comparison of those points that we wanted to get across in our dissection. So now I'm going to take some time to look at the Facebook Live and look at some comments. And I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint because I want to show you the perspective compared to that heart model that we just looked at, and different sheep heart models in science. So as I said, here's that model compared to a sheep heart that's dissected in half. So those pieces look a little different. They're more defined on the model than the sheep heart, but you're still able to very simply identify which parts are aligned with which parts. So here again, just a more labeled diagram of that sheep heart, that dissection. And I'm looking through my comments before we're ready to finish today's lesson. So I'm just going to take right now to wait for some questions to come in. But while I wait for some questions to come in, I just want to give a quick shout out. So in our Live from Surgery program, we work with a very large OR team. In our live surgery program, we are able to live stream a various amount of surgeries to students that come to field trips to Liberty Science Center. And on this OR team that our students are able to interact with, there's a lot of different careers involved, and there are a lot of different types of nurses involved in the OR. So today is International Nurses Day. So here at the Liberty Science Center, we want to give a shout out to all of the nurses and medical professionals who are doing amazing work, especially during this challenging time. So, on behalf of the Liberty Science Center, thank you so much. So, while I wait for questions to come in or some comments, I'm gonna just leave this slide up. So I'm just scrolling through these comments. Does the sheep heart have a disease? So if you're referring to the sheep heart that we just dissected, no, those hearts do not have a disease. These are preserved hearts. Yes, these are preserved hearts. They're preserved in a special liquid. So these hearts are preserved in a special liquid so that scientists are able to use them, or students, in doing anatomy and studying different topics and doing these dissections. So let's see. Why do hearts generate differently? So hearts, just like all of our bodies, are very different from each other. So someone might be taller or shorter or younger or older, and that may affect the size and shape of their heart. Not that it's a bad thing or results in a heart issue or heart problem. Our bodies are all just different. Our organs, although they might be the same, maybe shaped differently, just like those two sheep hearts that you saw. What was in the left ventricle of the sheep that didn't look white? So in the right ventricle, I was kind of peeling out those little areas of muscle that were left over, and that was what I was kind of peeling out. So someone says, are you a doctor or a scientist? So I'm just one of the distance learning specialists at the Liberty Science Center. I'm one of many STEM educators that we have here doing all different programs. So every day we have a lot of our educators who are involved in science, doing all different live programs every day. So anyone can be a scientist just by doing research or coming up with different ideas. What is the size difference from a sheep heart compared to a human heart? So actually, the size difference isn't that much different. So our hearts that are about the size of our fists are about the same in a human and a sheep. Is it an organ or a muscle? So our heart is an organ, but it also is a muscle, has a lot of different muscular parts to it. How similar is the sheep's heart to a human heart? So the reason why we're able to use this sheep heart, comparing the anatomy to a human heart, is because the size is very similar and almost identical completely inside and outside to a sheep heart. So thank you all so much for joining me for today's lesson. Um, as I said, I just want to give another quick shout out to all of the amazing nurses working on the front lines. And thank you all for joining me today. If I wasn't able to get to your question or comment, I'll see you next week, me or Mr. Alejandro, for another one of our live from programs. But please check us out on our Facebook page or visit LSC in the House on our website, any of our social medias. We have incredible, really fun experiments for you to try out, different videos, or just different projects in general. So, yes, please check us out on LC in the House. And thank you again so much for joining me. And I will see you next week for another one of our live from programs. So, goodbye, everyone. And thank you so much again.